feeling just going live and seeing. Oh, you know what? I almost completely forgot. Now I remembered something I wanted to kind of spin this weave off of. Hang on a second. What's this guy doing? All right. Yeah. The what was I gonna? What was the term? It was the something demon. It was like the blameless demon, I think was the term. I remember the concept more than the term I was going to title the video, so I may change that. But because we have arrived at a personal responsibility level of things, we've got the main issue why the discussion of demon possession is and mental health is it's a good discussion for solving a spiritual side of a problem that only is useful when somebody starts taking personal responsibility and really starts to listen to the steps necessary and to understand how they got to where they are, have become what they become, and the options of going one way or the other, right? And finding a reason not to continue to go down on a downward spiral, right? Because there are different kinds of demons, and some demons are going to serve you to your benefit, but they are going to exploit you either way. And the daemon is a slightly different story. The daemon, if it's involved with your problems, it's because it was legitimately trying to help you, but unfortunately it was dealing with somebody who didn't want to help themselves. And a daemon, which is a Greek term for something that's akin to Norse terms for philias and fetches and so on and so forth. It's this spirit genius that follows a man. The muses can be considered daemons in the manner in which I'm thinking of this relationship. Hold on. Which I almost, I feel more and more confident that the 9 muses are the 9 wives of Heimdall. I feel like there's a similarity that is outright specific and makes a lot of sense. But at any rate, how's it going, Peaceful? I see you in there. So, you have to pay the price for what you did under the control of these beings. And I can completely understand why you would, on a basic level, want to do such a thing without knowing or caring about any of the further consequences that are not clarified in that statement. Because, I mean, like, either people were too stupid to know or too proud to admit that they were smart enough to know and did it anyway. And so they'll play dumb for pride because it's less embarrassing or less consequences. Right? So why is it a blameless thing, right? If you look at a prime example is the allegory of Legion, Jesus and the swine of Legion. So, although beyond your simple folkloric allegory within that story, which is what I really want to focus on, I do want to acknowledge that stuff is also happening because Jesus has a relationship as kind of like their boss, right? Because people are forgetting, the relationship between God and the devil. And so the pigs get cast into the swine, which is sure a downgrade for them. Or, I'm sorry, the demons get cast into the swine, which is like a downgrade for them because they want to live in the human experience. But also, it's not... it's not the worst of experiences for the demon to be there, right? I am not entirely certain what happens to the demon that gets its host killed, which I'm pretty sure is some sort of ultimate, like, ritual sacrifice for it. That's typically the way you see it depicted in modern fiction, and so I think that there's a certain degree of truth to that. Granted, most modern fiction that we're getting these references from is coming from cinema and stuff, and the story writing is deliberately crafted most of the time for Jewish metaphysics, right? Jewish Gnostic, Kabbalistic way of the world works and the human works. And if you've listened to me long enough, that system, which has been adopted by a race of people and kind of made like into their like a core magical tradition, meaning that the very science of the magic is a tradition, meaning they don't want to separate themselves from bad science, right? And they don't, it's just like they want to acknowledge spirituality as science, but then they don't want to treat it like science in the sense of if you're causing more pain and suffering through the techniques of your practice, but that's not the way they feel about it, right? And that's because of the mythology that's wrapped around the metaphysics. It all rationalizes itself. This is the inversion in the neurolinguistic programming set to the inversion to keep you fed on to the demons and not the daemons. And so, I'm kind of basically saying that the demon is, in a general sense, is anything outside of your spirit sphere, right? And by spirit sphere, I'm talking about the 9 factors to the psychosomatic northern soul complex. this system right here, demonstrated upon thy breast. So the Legion doesn't get into trouble. Legion's not in trouble. Legion's not just like, oh, protect me from thine creator or whatever. Like, oh no! It's just like, no, Jesus is showing up and he's solving fucking problems. Legion was probably there because he was invited in like the vampire. Do you understand? Right? We invite these demons in. Because if we don't know ourselves, we don't know the difference between the spirits we're supposed to have in our lives that are associated with our soul complex versus other spirits out there. And then we want to get into some really fucking serious contracts with these entities, operating off of that same inverted gridworks that I just mentioned. But they're effectively trying to make the mystery tradition of Kabbalah this universal, kind of like a universal framework for the magical practicing of your religion, right? And I know that the early works of Ashiana Dean apparently is some of the good stuff because it was straightening out a lot of the gridworks, the gridwork mechanics, the proper numerological coding for things. So this is the tree, right? And the spirits are the tenants of your tree. You know, it's just like, hey, there's a tree. There's a snake on that branch. There's a bear in that branch. Bears can climb trees, as we know. There's a monkey over there, a bird over there, right? Like, this is the tree of you, and then you've got your spirit guides, right? You've got all your different fucking spirits that are yours. You know them. They're familiar to you. You don't have a fucking... you don't have a earthly contract with them, right? You didn't, they're not there because the keys of Solomon and your bad habits. They are there because your ancestors sent them. They're ordained by the gods, so on and so forth. And they treat you right. They treat you right. They don't have you in any kind of a bind, and you're not asking for a bind with them, and you don't even feel the need to it because you feel you're already connected, right? Sometimes you don't have to think of them at all, and then stuff just kind of happens and everybody is good, right? Like, you might be taking a hike somewhere out in the wild, and you kind of need to do a tiny bit of tracking, and you can feel the wolf in you perking up, and all he's doing is using his nose, and you're just following the inner guidance, and because you know that, you know, your wolf is on the hunt, right? This is kind of like your personal shit. Why are the wolves? Why are the wolves escaping me now? Ravenous and greed. Ravenous and greed. We use pretty hardcore fucking words there, pretty negative associated terms as our understanding of these Old Norse terms for Odin's wolves, right? And we do that because they are things that are highly associated with your personal protection and your ability to do dangerous things. Freki, which is that's the ravenous one. Freki, Gedi and Freki. There we go. Thank you. Oof. Gedi and Freki. Greed and frenzy. And so Gedi would be popping out and helping you on the hunt. Not literally Gedi, but like your spirit of the hunt comes out. And you'll have an animal spirit that is your hunter spirit. You know, just like the goat legs climbing the mountains. It's like I go bouldering and I gotta connect with my mountain goat. Right? Gotta think like a mountain goat, and I can't handle that near 90-degree angle. It's like 89 degrees, and I can tiptoe my way up the top of the mountain. 90. Can't do 90. The goat can't do 90 either. So anything less than a straight shot up. I'm sure it can't just be 89 degrees smooth. I'm sure it's got to be 89 degrees gnarly. Like super gnarly, but yet still 89 degrees. And they're brave motherfuckers because they can still fall and die. Like, still bad thing happen like that. But they're gonna go for it. The things that don't scare them, don't scare them. Hey, what's up, Theo? So, unless you're dealing with somebody who is possessed by a particularly monstrous entity, you are otherwise just getting somebody who they can't be themselves and they're operating in a certain psyche function where they're living in this dilapidated kind of character, and it's a little troubling, right? Like, and it's just like intuitively, you know, when you see these, it's like the fact that we've allowed this woke culture situation to allow us to not know the difference between mental illness and legitimate gender state or legitimate legitimate all sorts of things, right? Because you can just go buck wild with all sorts of shit. You know, reincarnation is real. You think you've got an inkling that you are a powerful, known figure of history, right? And your grandiosity, your narcissism kind of takes over, and then you're running around the reincarnation of Cleopatra. That's right. When you're maybe, if you are maybe Cleopatra, relax. You're not allowed to use that past life in this life. You're allowed to look at the code of behavior that you were running as your personality program, your tics, your desired whatever, and now now that you are in a different life, free of that, you can take that on any tangent. You know, like you can make your own decisions about it, right? And be different, and make better decisions, right? And if you know that you're not impressive as like me, I'm not like, I can't like look, I work in a fucking warehouse and shit, but like, you know, if I do have ancestry that were in fact knights, like perhaps in the Crusades or something, like, you know, obviously, like talking about like baseline of this thing, right? So tap into this idea of my past life, and what do I feel about that? What do I feel was right and wrong? What do I feel is like a natural, like, oh, why don't I do things this way that I am intuiting from my meditations on my family lineage, right? It's just like, oh, I ought to be more like this, and then, you know, if it comes up, I can talk about like, oh, you know, just like some of my work with looking into my past and being more of who I feel I really am, right? You know, because this is my discovery, my journey to discover myself. Most people don't even know that you can take up a journey to discover yourself. They just think they know who they are already, because they don't know what it means, you know, to be a self. They just know how to satiate the desires of the self and claim your personality to those desires. And then running around with your little sub-programs parroting things that you like. And this is where you get all these man-childs that are all about their culture thing. And you can see the sadness element of their posture, of their disposition, when you see that it's really what the only thing that they're about, and that maybe they have a very likable personality, and you understand the conversation that they're having about whatever kind of thing, whether that thing that they're talking about is a valuable thing to spend your time hearing about. You know, this is like, that's why I can only feed so much of my fucking interest to like somebody who's you know, making Lord of the Rings memes all day, and half the time the Lord of the Rings memes are trite little like inner fucking meta memes where they're just like, oh, the, you know, like what if yeah, I don't know, like what if Gimli had the ring and he got all decrepit about it and said a funny joke because he was corrupted by the ring, right? And all these little things that go on, and you get like an amusing little chuckle, but it's like, you know, I'm not trying to say that Tolkien's work should be up there as some sort of European fucking sacred scripture, but it ought to be an honored and revered piece of literary mythology. But we're far too interested in the social market of it and things like, we're far more interested in the toy line and the other trite entertainments, right? It's like reducing Thor to the Marvel Cinematic Universe version of Thor, as opposed to even a halfway decent comic run of Thor. It's just sad and pathetic. That's really the answer. Sad and pathetic. All right. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you later. I hope I covered enough elaboration on this whole thing with the spirit possession stuff in this period of time. Okay, catch you later.